satirical, controversial, and mature. These are but a few of the descriptions that people give to the recently published J.K. Haru wa isekai de fufu ni natta, or J.K. Haru is a sex worker in another world by Hiratoriko. Originally published as a web novel, it got its debut as a one-shot light novel of September of 2018. The story had a lot of allusions in the field of anime, video games, and Japanese trends. Yet the content does not only entertain the otaku community, but also working adults as well. The story is told through Haru, the main character, and her adventures as a prostitute in an unfamiliar world. Each chapter tells its own story, but its form is linear in nature. At first glance, it may seem like a plot for a hentai, but as the story progresses, we see that it gives out more of a feminist vibe. It also builds into the misogynistic world, one where women are simply treated as objects of sex or something more inferior, and compares it to Haru's original world. But as much as I would like to evaluate this novel through the feminist approach, I feel I do not have the proper qualifications to do so. But if in future someone was to pick up this light novel through my recommendation or through curiosity alone, I hope they view it with a female's perspective. For now, as it is a recent publication, I would like to start things with a formalistic approach. And because of the plethora of Japanese references, it might be appropriate to analyze the novel while explaining what these terms mean and how they fit into the narrative. The first thing that really caught my attention was the beginning phrase. It began right off the bat with the sexual themes without any subtle indication or imagery. It simply began with, "The funniest thing that happened when I came to this world was the time I burst out laughing about how they use grass for contraception here." The moment I read that line, I knew it was not going to be a sweet or joyous tale. When the author first described the word, it was through a young female protagonist, and in that single line, we see how ridiculous the story would be thanks to her description of contraception. And all of the things the author could have started with, she started by describing what the world used for contraception. This will soon play a big role in the story, and believe it or not, is a foreshadow of the theme of the novel. We are then formally introduced to the protagonist, Haru, a young 18-year-old JK, short for Joshikose, translated as high school girl, from Tokyo who died after being hit by a vehicle together with Chiba, a fellow classmate and an otaku, and was transported to another world, a fantasy world. Now, the isekai trope is a term used in popular light novels. This was the theme and setting for many famous light novels like Overlord, Re:Zero, and Konosubarashi Sekai ni, I can't read that, Konosuba, to name a few. It follows a very simple premise of being transported from a real world into the world of fantasy, one referenced by popular media. Most protagonists of the isekai genre tend to have the world revolve around them. Those who are not related to them are treated as non-existent beings. They have no purpose other than being NPCs, and this is how Haru is introduced. Not as a special person in which the world revolves around him, but a prostitute working in a brothel. From her perspective, we see just how misogynistic this isekai world really is. They have young girls as young as 14 working as a prostitute, and even admitting that prostitution was the only thing she could do in that world. According to her, this world is so misogynistic that women come practically as given with drinks, and we sex workers are basically on the dead last rung of the social ladder. Unlike most characters in the isekai genre, wherein the hero has to defeat the evil overlord trying to take over the whole world, as reflected by the character of Chiba, Haru's goal was different. It was a simple goal, but very down to earth. She wanted to become the brothel's best prostitute, and bits and pieces revealed that she had been in that line of work even in her previous world. In the real world, at least in modern Japan, prostitution of high school students is spreading, and Japanese men would go abroad to take advantage of child prostitution. It was something she was familiar with, but upon entering the other world filled with adventurers who exterminated monsters and explore for a living, she lost her role in the world. All of the glory was going to Chiba, whom she refers to as a loser. And so in order to fit in, she cut her hair, interacted with her customers, and played as the side character in the unfamiliar world. We are then introduced to words like lolly, allusions like Conan and Monster Hunter, and a lot more. These were terms that Chiba would understand and Haru had very few knowledge of. There were also terms that a common Japanese citizen would know, like when Haru compared customer's guildmaster as a yakuza boss. The world, as she saw it, had quite some comparison to her original world. For one, they had gambling in the form of coliseum matches and bet thousands of rubles, or their currency, just to make a quick buck. It is mostly done to pass the time. In the real world, in Japan, gambling is also apparent through Pachinko slots in every city. There are an estimated 7 million players of the slots, gaining almost 2.8 trillion yen or 250 billion US dollar worth of revenue. There were even times when Haru and Chiba thought that the people they left in their original world were doing now. And if they were able to go back, would they still have a place in it? One might think because Haru and Chiba came from the same world, they would have some sort of connection. But we see throughout the story that the connection they had was that they were once classmates who were transported into another world. Nothing more. And so even when they had intercourse, Haru would simply fake it for Chiba's sake, because he was the only one she knew before. She was tied to him even though she had a hot boyfriend in the original world. Chiba took that opportunity and wanted to brag, as if masturbating to his narcissistic side. He thinks of relationships as a game, choosing a heroine and taking the route, like in a visual novel. But in terms of being a hero, he had no chivalrous qualities. There was even a time when Haru, despite hating Chiba, wanted him to save her from the thugs that were sexually harassing her at the shop. But Chiba was nowhere in sight. And when the two get into an argument later on in the story, we see how small this problem was compared to Haru. It got so strong easily, but now because of one setback you're doomed. Every day is the sad part of the story for sex workers. We are also introduced with skills, stats, levels, etc. Something gamers can easily relate to. And these skills describe a person's ability and strength, as they are inborn and specific to an individual. And these were all given by a character named God, the creator of the world. It is through God that we truly see how misogynistic the world was. God liked Chiba, so he gave him a good skill. This was something Haru could not stand. Chiba being too cocky about his cheat abilities and being practically unbeatable, but when we learn later that his skills had limits. He would say that he had to strategically control his level to avoid suspicion, despite bragging about it all the time. What he didn't know was that the stronger he became, the more dangers fell upon him and Haru. But the world went in favor of Chiba, because in this world, it would be within his right to take revenge or to counterattack, even if it ended up killing the culprits. Haru took it upon herself to bring Chiba and Kiyori closer so that she can finally get rid of him for good. That, after a while, they will settle into just waving if they see each other. But after learning how unconcerned Chiba was with Haru's well-being, despite claiming that he wants to protect her forever, she figured it would be unwise to pair them together. This difference in points of view is reflected by a study conducted by Hart, wherein he found that boys during his time enjoyed greater mobility and range compared to girls who expanded their range to take on responsibilities for the family. They were raised to be like that. But it's the 21st century, and whatever interests males would probably interest females as well, and vice versa. We see this change as Haru tries to adapt to her new world and changing this belief later on.